Robby Rabadi. How are you, sir?
Good, buddy. How are you doing, Coach?
I'm doing great, man. We did a talk before. I thought it went really well, but we were a little bit rushed for time because I had to take the computer over and do the online classes, and I think we spent quite a bit of that time talking about how we're handling, the current situation. I'd like to shift gears a little bit on this one, and I haven't given you any warning, so you don't know what I'm going to be asking you. But I would love it if you would, if I could just ask you a few questions just about your story, as far as how you got to where you are right now. I think it takes a lot of courage to venture out and skip the 9 to 5. Job and say, I'm going to strike out and start my own business, and I'm going to take the risk that comes along with that. And you've not only done it, but you've built one of the largest jiu-jitsu schools in Texas and produced a lot of really high quality students along the way. You've done a great job. I think you're a fantastic role model for anybody who might be where you once were. And so I want to just pick your brain. I'm going to ask you to be vulnerable, and if you cry, that's okay, because only everyone's going to be watching.
Sure.
But let's back up now, because you got hundreds of students. It's your livelihood. You're doing fantastic. You got a new academy. It's beautiful. Congratulations on that, by the way. I know you didn't start that way, so I want to rewind to where the moment where you kind of decided you were going to go in the direction of being a martial arts school owner, which is a couple of decisions there. It's the decision to be an entrepreneur and the decision to commit yourself to the martial arts, both. And for most people, I'll kind of wrap up with this before I let you talk, is most people, each of those requires your full attention, and to do both, you were still kind of growing yourself a lot at that time. So talk about that.
Yeah. You nailed it in talking about you're definitely wearing two different hats, and so much of your focus goes right into both of those things. Both of those things are a challenge, and I've actually been on both sides of the spectrum of a successful business and a failed business. And this is something I used to be super shy about talking about and feel very insecure about. A failed business I had in my past. I owned a coffee shop for a little while. I thought it'd be a cool thing, and completely sucked at it. It was terrible. It was one of these classically, I wasn't inspired enough about what I was doing to really get me to give all the effort really required. Because, Coach, you can speak to this, that every day is a full-on battle, siege that you have to wage on everything. And every other part of your personal life is kind of second to that. And so you have to, always kind of compartmentalize and take small baby steps, small bites at a bigger thing, and break it down and slowly kind of master it. And it takes a little while. But to go back, my story is a little similar to yours, Coach. No traveling to Brazil, of course, but so I started fairly young, just turned 18, just about to turn 19, started training, and within maybe 6 months, I realized I loved martial arts more than anything and enjoyed it. I had wanted to do it my whole life. And my parents had enrolled me in a few YMCA karate programs and type of stuff like that, but never with a consistency. And then when I was becoming a teenager, I really wanted to get back into it. Of course, watching the early UFCs, seeing those, renting the VHS tapes at Hollywood Video and Blockbuster, and watching those and getting excited and all this kind of stuff. And way back when, me and my brother were joking about this the other day. What was more important to you, the day you got your driver's license or the day you got your Blockbuster card to rent your movies and stuff? So, pretty pivotal moments in a young man's life. And, but anyway, so started training, really fell in love with it. I kind of knew within the first 6 months that it would be a part of my life forever on one level or another. I wasn't quite sure about the teaching and the academy owner because I hadn't done that yet. I was still a new student. I was a white belt. I loved helping and being around everyone and being giving and all that kind of stuff. But like the full-on teaching and what that required, I had no idea. Of course, the entrepreneur thing, I had no idea either. I was working 9-to-5s like everyone else, were really bad 9-to-5s, ones that allowed me to train as much as possible. Professor, I'm sure you can speak to that struggle too, but it was just all the jobs that most people don't want to do, but then for some reason they provide enough and give enough and then allow for the timing to, make training that evening. And so I was all in. Did that for 6-7 days a week training, and did that for like close to 11 years before I opened up my academy, and was competing, was doing my thing, and then I started getting into fighting MMA, which was always kind of a goal that I wanted, but I knew I wanted to take my time. For me, I always really revered, idolized just the guys who were just masters of their craft, right? The ones who were so technically good, who were had incredible work ethic and just put it together. And you can see the difference between, of course, you respect the people that do it early on and jump right into it and learn as they go. But man, I wanted to be that good sweet spot of like the best version of myself. When I fought, so I actually didn't fight MMA, even though it was a goal early on. Didn't fight MMA. I was competing in jiu-jitsu, did other competitions, other things like that, of course. Did a ton of those. But I actually didn't do that till like year 6 or 7 of training. And so I started doing that, started winning, started picking up steam. And meanwhile, I was teaching and coaching and starting to get into that side of things. And that kind of led me to the academy. There was an opportunity to teach, and a mutual friend told me about a space that could potentially work. And I just thought, well, hey, I want to compete and do more of this. And this would be just really helpful to, if I'm on the mats, working hard already, working with students, helping people, that then to transition into greater training time. It just made perfect sense. But what I didn't know was like, I had kind of built up a nice little following of people that I taught and taught private lessons to and different things, that this kind of opportunity met. And, within the first 2 weeks of being open, I had like 30 students. I hit the 100 mark after like 5 or 6 months. We were already outgrowing the space, and it became this like beautiful problem. And, trying to figure that out. And, life took this new path, this new journey. And I couldn't have been happier about it. It really felt a true calling happening in that time.
Your story of how you came to do it is, I think, in many ways similar to how other successful entrepreneurs start out. And I think there is this kind of ignorant belief out there that if you open a successful business, not a martial arts school, but anything, is that you somehow have access to this secret formula that no one else knows except for people that are privy to it, or you've just got it in your DNA, you're just a business person. And for the reality is, it almost always starts with passion for something, followed by all right, I'm going to figure out how to do what I love, as opposed to, I know how to do something and I'm going to immediately turn it into success and money and this beautiful, cover that everybody's going to admire because I just know how to do it. I didn't know anything when I started. Started in the garage. You kind of started it was kind of a blended sports training facility where you had your own mat space.
Yes.
So talk about the sort of like learning on the job, and what were some of the, I'd really love to hear like the mistakes you make. I think this is like super valuable. Yeah, a lot of people would like to follow their dreams, but they think that they don't have it because they lack the resources or the education or the know-how, and that anybody who's ever reached a level of success or followed their dreams, they're just smarter, or they just have, just money and just the right combination of everything flowing to them, and it's never like that. But what was it like? Like, talk about. I want to hear like what were some of the challenges and the failures. Oh, and please, one thing too. You mentioned that you had a kind of a failed business going into that, which is for a lot of people that's like that's maybe a throw in the towel moment. I'm going to go back to what's safe, and you obviously didn't follow that. So talk about that too.
Man, absolutely, you nailed it. You nailed it, Travis, when you said that. Yeah, that a lot of people think that they had it. So that experience, my failed business, again, like I already mentioned that I used to be so ashamed. I would never like to even talk about it or bring it up for a few years afterwards. The failed business happened. The failed coffee shop happened in 2008. Same time as the housing crisis and all that kind of stuff happened, and that was a tough one because I figured, I'm like, it's coffee. How hard could it be? I drink coffee. I like this. Hey, this is great. I had some previous management experience and things like that. I was like, no problem. And I had no idea what was really required of me in that space. And yeah, it was a big flub. And not to mention, like I had mentioned, like I was a very humble martial artist. There wasn't a ton of cash flow and resources and money going into it. So it was kind of like everything I had went into it. And I kind of, there's that great John Wooden quote about mistaking basically busy work for effective work. And I believe that's an exact quote, by the way. No, it's not. It's a real bad quote. Repeat. But basically busy work for effective work. And that was one of the biggest things I learned. Well, I'm staying busy. I'm here 12 hours a day. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. But are you really working hard? Are you really doing the things required to make it happen? Are you checking all those boxes? Well, of course you can do all the easy stuff. Anyone would line up to do the easy stuff, the fun stuff, the creative stuff, the different things that get like either an immediate gratification to it or even a long term. But who wants to do the hard stuff, the accounting side of it, the balancing budgets, the trying to understand, trying to project, going out there and maybe putting some extra time into marketing and things like that. And I was doing none of it. And so it was one of those things that all those skeletons of that closet came flying out at me. And by the way, this thing failed in less than 4 or 5 months. I mean, it was so fast. It was so in my face, and literally, like I said, like it was one of the like biggest embarrassments of my life, and I felt terrible about it, and I used to hate talking about it and all this kind of stuff. And now it's one of my favorite things to talk about. I love bringing it up and all these like multitude of lessons. The only thing is that they're so textbook as far as mistakes go. It's one of those like you could have learned a few of these from other people. No, I got to do it myself and learn it all the hard way. And that's kind of what it was. There was all these like kind of simple errors. I already talked about the not wanting to do the things you didn't want to do, the planning ahead, using your staff and for their strengths, not just what you think their strengths are, but really finding out what their strengths are and what they could possibly do to help you, and just so many different things. And I think the probably the biggest lesson is embracing all those things that I didn't want to do and doing them like I like doing them. And then at some point they become part of your routine and habit and all these types of things. Let me say this for sure. There was a massive fear of failure. Like starting the school thing, actually, I got a massive push in the back from a friend who would not leave the subject alone when he heard about the opportunity. And he would not, and so much to the point where he actually ended up helping invest money as a conduit to get me to finally accept kind of what was obviously there. He was also a student of mine doing private lessons, all this stuff. And he's just like, look, I will help put a part down just to get you over this hump, but you have to get out of your head. And I was so deeply buried in there, like fresh off the failure for sure. And I felt it all. And it overcame me. It was like, there were some serious, like, dark moments after the failure for sure that I can tell anyone about that made me so bummed out. I think when it initially went down, obviously like the financial smack in the face, the humiliation of it, the feeling of just like letting yourself down and doing everything wrong, and just all this kind of stuff was so powerful. I remember for like a month, I felt like I did nothing. The month right afterwards, just felt like I did nothing positive in my life. And the first real thing that pulled me out of that, funny enough, was back to training. And that probably happened within a week or two, but I was going from like definitely like 6 days a week to like 1 ton a week. And one really great training partner was really pushing me, was aware of kind of what happened, and was like, all right, just keep going. Just keep going. This will be helpful. This will be good for you. And so a lot of that was in me still from 2 years prior. So when we first started, it was, sharing space. You already talked about it. We're sharing space with a kids strength and conditioning, soccer training facility. And it was basically, the place was called it was like a big red barn and metal building, the whole thing, and had the faux grass. And what kind of helped out with this opportunity is that the guy also happened to be the local middle school wrestling coach. So there's wrestling mats there. And so we're like, oh, okay, well, here's this opportunity, here's that. And I'm like, okay, we could start out small and give it an opportunity. It was like 3 minutes from my house. And I'm like, wow, this area doesn't really have a jiu-jitsu academy. And so let's see what we can do with it. And to start out, so I had no idea what to expect, but I knew I had learned so many painful lessons from the previous business venture that I knew a lot of different things to prep for it. And it started with obviously like being smarter about some of the legwork that was really required in marketing and putting things out there and setting it up and doing it the right way. That all those little tiny steps kind of had to get walked repeatedly, done over, done right. And it was a weird experience of like, my first class was Monday, June 16th, 2009, and I had 5 people in class, 5 people in my adult class, and then 4 kids in my kids class that right before it. So those were the 2 hours I taught. So there's a total of 9 people there. One was my brother, so we can eliminate him. 2 were former students from another academy that lived in that area, and that stayed connected with. So there's about like 7 or 8 people trying out the class. And then so next night comes around, and I have 22 people trying out class. And so, all right, well, this is picking up a little bit of speed, and so things are kind of starting to move quickly in one way. And so even though I had prepared, and just to rewind back, I'm sorry I skipped this, but I actually had saved up for about a year. And so I saved up, and then I also scaled down my entire life. I had almost 0 outgoing bills at that point, minus like I had purchased a home. This is part of that big failure that I had. As part of things, finally had a solid job. I was able to purchase my first home, all that kind of stuff. And so that almost got lost, all this kind of stuff through the failure of it. I was almost ready to give it all up. And then so when I had the second time around, I actually scaled down everything I had. I had such little overhead for me personally that I knew I could live off of a very, 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 very moderate salary of any kind, and not pull any salary from the business itself, and kind of reduce any stress there.
But real quick, Robbie, because that reminds me, like, I think that's something you have to embrace if you're going to go for it. Is you're going to pay yourself last. You have to say, okay, I have to pay for everything I need to keep this alive, including other people. I can't not pay them, and then I'll pay myself. So being willing to do that. I think it's very important, and it's not a bad idea to embrace even when you start to make a little bit, because you value that. There's the guy from Shark Tank, Damon John. He had a book called The Power of Broke, and it's all about like keep yourself broke even as you start making a little bit more, so that you can properly allocate that to the right, to what you need. Whether you're paying off a house or building a business or starting like, very small. So that just reminded me of that. I did the same thing early on. It was like, I'm making a little money, but I don't know I'm going to make it tomorrow. So just, pretend you don't have it, and keep it, where it can work.
Yes, absolutely. That, yeah, with no guarantee that you'll ever get it back, and that you might have missed the true opportunity to, pay yourself, frankly, for your efforts and your intentions and what you're doing for people. So that was definitely a active choice that I made, and I knew that it would take everything to get to it. And I was fortunate enough that things lined up pretty quickly, but I was prepared for them to not work out that easily, and really almost have yourself a struggle period of 2 to 3 years, and just kind of knowing that and studying up. One of the other big things was, just like everyone else, like not really after school, like my time in school, I stopped really reading and thinking of my education in any other way except for on the mats, in the ring, those type of things, and taking in all these life lessons without trying to learn anything beyond that. You just talked about learning from a book. Yeah, that was me. That was also one of the massive changes in my life. And I'm like, hey, dummy, it might be worth your time to read a book about starting a business before you open a business. This could be helpful for you. And so it was one of those things, those moments of just like, preparation isn't just this like nice thing that people talk about. There's really a point to it. It really does help in so many different ways, and you got to do it on all levels. And you can't just do it in the preparation that you like, which is training and competing and all this stuff, but you got to do the stuff you don't like also.
Yeah, and I think what it is, anyone who starts a school is clearly motivated by their passion for the martial arts that they teach. Like, I remember doing jiu-jitsu when I was 16, and just I couldn't imagine anything more fun, enjoyable, challenging, that occupied so much of my mental space. And a mistake I've seen many school owners, make, it's just almost cliche at this point as well. I'm a black belt, I'm good at the thing that I know how to teach the thing that I know. That's all the check marks that I need in order to do this. And not only do they think that, but they shun the idea of embracing business skills. And they see, certain schools that are organized and doing marketing and commercials, and it's like, oh, what a shame, there's nothing pure about that. And 6 months later, they're done and complaining about how unfair things are and how, they could do it, but people just didn't see how valuable I was. Like, because you didn't market to them and show them and open your mind up to, what you can do. And really, I think it does take an open mind. And it's no different than the best martial artists would never shun an idea that was a little different than what they were taught. They would say, let me try that and let me see if I can make that work. Well, I think GSP is probably the best at this. He's the best student of the game, right? So if you are going to say, I want to follow my passion and turn it into a business, why would you ever, shut your mind to an idea that could make that a reality. But yeah, so tell me a little bit. I mean, obviously you hit the ground running and it took off, which is awesome. Not everybody gets to do that, especially during a time when the rest of the economy was kind of, sucking wind. I had a similar experience. I had huge growth in 2008. I don't know why. And everybody was like, "Hey, did you know the economy is like terrible?" Like, I guess, but I don't know if that was a little bit of luck or it was kind of the right time of like, MMA popularity and all that stuff, but obviously it's not all, clear sailing. So what are some of the bumps in the roads that made you take a step back and pivot and adjust?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That and then the one thing going back to it is that when you have these sudden spikes of shit right from the gate, you're just like, well, I guess I figured it all out already. Yeah.
It's like winning. It's like beating somebody who's really high ranked. You're like, oh, I beat them. I guess I'm at that level. It's like, well, anybody can have a good little run.
100%. There is that occasional, right? The blue belt taps a black belt or brown belt or whichever, and it's one of those moments, and it's about replicating it and consistency and figuring out, especially in business, that's survival. And the problems I actually fell into were some of those issues is that I had never. So I assumed I would have 2 to 3 years of great struggle, and even then it would require a core that kind of grew from itself, and to have this just field of new people all at once, not having a platform. This is something I learned from you, Professor, was having a platform to how to create other instructors. I knew how to create other martial artists and help develop techniques and concepts and build experience, but how to develop another instructor, because now I need one. Now there's one of me, and I'm, like to say that I had just like a class full of novices is just like a compliment, because some were all brand new and had never done anything athletic in their life before. And so I needed to split myself into 10 and figure out how do I do all that. And then you do all that hard work and you dedicate it. And then, oh, by the way, in the morning, you have a long checklist of business stuff that needs to get kind of settled and made happen. And so all those things were those were the early speed bumps of how do I best manage my time? How do I create a routine? How do I create a sustainable way to kind of be there for everyone and develop everyone in the vision that I have for the academy? And those were real tough markers. It was hard stuff. It was always obviously doing your best and everything you could to help and dedicating yourself a ton. But for me, the wake up call kind of happened that I was not balancing things that well is when I started becoming very injured every 2 or 3 days. And I was not 2 or 3 days, but every other week or something. It seemed to happen very often. And I had at that point been very fortunate and not had really any serious injuries. And all the time I was putting on the mat, the lack of recovery time, me time, doing things that were required to maintenance yourself. By the way, also trying to balance out time for the business side of the academy were the massive hurdles. I was physically kind of having some breakdown moments, and then that kind of led to me, putting all my eggs in one basket of I need to just focus on this for now, and then over here, and focus on all this over here, and then and then this and that, and then so it became this completely imbalanced time in my life, which is you kind of expect as becoming a business owner and all of that. And it is crazy and hectic, and it's almost like you knock out 5 problems today, but there's still 10 from yesterday, and then 5 more are added on today, and so it's this constant shuffling of it. And so I just kind of took it in stride, but then I realized that process took a few years to even begin to figure out. And
And
I think,
honestly,
you don't figure it out. I was just gonna say, because it really reminds me, like, you don't figure it out. There's no like end of the tunnel. To me, it's been like I'm doing things better than before, and I've still got a lot of unfinished, aspects of my business that I'm working on. And some things you never get to, you let them go. Other things you're not ready, to embrace them. But it's sort of like what you're saying is kind of reminds me of the concept of like work-life balance, which is somewhat of an illusion. You sort of ride one wave a little higher and something else suffers, and you're trying to flatten that as much as you can. But there are just there are moments of chaos, it's like what you're saying, where it's like, I gotta do this, I can't do that, this is gonna suffer a little bit, this is more important right now, I gotta do it. And you sort of have to like find the calm in your own storm in a way,
Yes, yes, sir.
And you're doing a good job, because you had all that, and now, just to kind of like give a more of a modern day picture, you've got 3 kids, more students than you've ever had before. But to tie into what you were talking about, you've got an awesome team of instructors. And I feel like, at that level, without that, you have to stay small. And if you make the decision to grow, and ultimately the more you grow, the more you can help, you've got to have a big team. So, I remember for me, it started like almost accidentally with one and then grew. How did you, obviously it sounded like the need to have help just presented itself, like you're either gonna grow or you need to go backwards. So how did you kind of develop your core team?
So really there's 2 people that can be most kind of attributed to like how I bridge that gap and really found that space. One is you. So that's a big one.
All right, we can end the podcast now. I just wanted to get to that point. No.
Yes,
Totally. No, just if you guys don't know, Coach Travis is like exceptional, of course, on the mats, and that's how most of us know him and know what kind of skill and tremendous ability and technique and strategy, and just incredible, right? Has it all. And then is kind of equal parts of that on the business side of things, and really has fleshed out a lot of these different things. And someone like me gets really lucky and fortunate to work alongside him and get to figure out and learn a lot of that stuff. And so if you ever have that opportunity to learn from Professor, you do it, you take it. You say as little as you can, and you listen as much as you can. And leave all your preconceived notions at the door, because it's not that they don't matter, but sometimes they get in your way, and you're better off just walking free and clear into a learning moment like that, and not worry about well this has kind of worked for me, or this has kind of helped, and just in that learning moment. So a big thank you to you, Coach. Now I'll never say another nice thing about you ever again. So
that's okay. I play this on repeat forever.
It's a wrap. So the other one is this was more of the person that kind of helped with that work-life balance that we're talking about, and that's Professor George, my first black belt I ever had. I was 30 at the time that I started my academy, and I felt like when you grow up inside of your academy and competing and all these things, you're kind of inside that bubble. Of course, I had real life, real jobs and stuff like that. But in that bubble, like that world feels very fair, and you kind of have a great understanding of it. And it's a real privilege to be inside of it. And not too many kind of like oddball things happen in there. And obviously I have deep connections outside of that, but I didn't have a ton of life experience. And so all these like small things were coming at me that were requiring some different experiences that I didn't really have. And Professor George was really great at kind of mentoring as well, and kind of sharing some good advice. If you guys know him, he's hilarious, but he's also like wildly outspoken, does not suppress his opinion on anything ever, and he's amazing. But it's kind of brutally honest and brutally awesome as well, because you get it unfiltered, and it's just like, well, you
sounds like
didn't really go through.
Sounds like the name of a great metal band, Brutally Awesome.
Yes, that's going to be our band, our 80s tribute band. Brutally Awesome to the stage. But yeah, so he really started having me focus on the kind of the leadership and management of people, because before I knew it, I like so many, was in love with the martial art, the techniques, the competition, the different things you can do, the vehicle that it is to help people grow. I had so much personal growth from martial arts. It kind of shaped me as a person. And so I was so focused on that I had no understanding of what was going to be required of me. I don't want to say just off the mats, but adjacent to the mats, of like some of the other things you need to do as a coach, as a business owner, as a person who wants to just help people. If you draw just kind of a strict line of like, well, hey, coach, I'm having this hard time with this in my personal life. I'm like, great. You know what will help? This armbar. And it doesn't work that way. It doesn't help that way. And so it required like this different level of tapping into it. And I hadn't gotten a chance to do it very much. So it was just an unworked muscle. And it's a pleasure to share. And obviously, it's always a pleasure to hang out with one of my best friends in the world and really get to have a great conversations, as we always do. And yeah, absolutely. If I could just say one last thing, is just, yeah, embrace your mistakes and your vulnerabilities and what makes you great, and all this stuff is awesome, but it's actually all the stuff that doesn't make you great is what builds to it. It's what kind of shapes and molds it, and all those imperfect moments. And, you know, like you don't have to feel like this like undefeated monster of a competitor to always win. Coach, did I ever tell you how I lost my first tournament in the finals? Maybe, but tell it again. Real quick. It's very short. I got so first, I'm a white belt. It's one of the Winter Wars, Carlos Machado's tournament. It's I think I only do the no-gi one because I hadn't had enough time to train. So I was like, okay, I'll feel comfortable with this, all that kind of stuff. And forever, my training partner, one of my training partners, would always see me chewing on my mouthpiece and like not treating it very well and all this kind of stuff. And it was loose and I was kind of popping it in and out and just literally being one of those people with my mouthpiece. And again, I'm like 19 years old or 20 years old and, constantly fidgeting with it, chewing on it, treating it terribly, all this kind of stuff. I never even like boiled it to fit it properly, all that stuff. And even a few times he had trained with me and it kind of got dislodged and kind of put in a weird place and we had to stop and take it out. And so I win my first match, win my second match, win my third match. I'm in the finals against someone who won like gold in the gi earlier that day, or even maybe afterwards or something like that. He was actually from Austin and we were both competing in Dallas. And we're doing pretty good. I think he's actually, it's a no-gi thing. So they kind of lump us all together. He's actually a blue belt. I'm still a white belt and I'm doing all right. We're kind of like going back and forth. I think it's 2-2 or something like that on points. And my mouthpiece dislodges, turns sideways in my mouth. It is literally like suffocating me. Mm-hmm. And just for like a quick 99-cent fix, that kind of thing. And again, another story I didn't love to share for a long time and feel like, you're so badass and awesome and all this stuff. And you can't freaking handle your mouth, keeping your mouthpiece straight in your mouth. And it's those little moments that started making me understand, hey, you need to be more mindful of all the little things that you can have control over, that you can make the best that you possibly can do, your effort, your preparation, all those kind of things. And even in those lessons, I still have to relearn them again, 10, 11 years later in business. Like, oh, why would I not apply the same ideas that I learned on the mats to off the mats? So just wanted to share that real quick. Another embarrassing story of me.
Yeah, good. The more the better. I'm keeping a collection of them, but no, but I think no, that's perfect, and that's something so seemingly small and not that big of a deal, but it probably felt awful when it happens. And I think when we can like reflect and look back at our mistake, the sooner we can look back and say, hey, this is not that big of a deal. I just learned something very valuable, and I'm never going to make that mistake again because I'm changing it immediately. The sooner we do that, the quicker we get back on course to what we're trying to accomplish. And it's our egos that keep us hanging on and beating ourselves up like, oh, I'm such an idiot, not boiling my mouthpiece, which is hilarious, by the way. You gotta boil your mouthpiece. But
I know. And it'd be different if I didn't know and I wasn't constantly being kind of like messed with by a training partner about it.
Yeah.
He's like, buddy, when are you boil that stupid, quit chewing on it. It's just gross. Like, you stop it. But I was instantly cured of all of that, by the way, ever since. And never happened again.
Like that's what having a loss can do if you got the right attitude. It's like it immediately forces you to change your course, even if by just a small thing. It's just kind of like, okay, I'm going to do this differently. I don't like the way that felt, so I'm going to change. And that's so much more valuable than I don't like the way that felt, so I'm going to feel sorry for myself and not change it. So I don't know. Make the change and then immediately get to work with the change in place. And you've quickly forgotten about the mistake and you've embraced the new version of you. So every setback is really like an upgrade opportunity, I feel like.
Yes, sir. Couldn't agree more. Absolutely. And how much of a microcosm is martial arts to that? We got armbarred in a certain way. It happens again. You fight from it happening again, but it happens again. It happens again. Happens again. Yeah. And then the more you lean into it, embrace it, as opposed to avoiding it, it's forever a weak spot, or then it becomes forever one of your strongest assets you'll ever have. It's like, well, yeah, go after my arms. I'm all ready.
This is why everyone should do jiu-jitsu, because it puts you in a state of mind where you get to experience that like 10 times a class.
Yes. Exactly.
Wiring your brain to overcome because you're going to tap out a lot early on, and it quickly changes like how you have to accept those situations. Well, anyway, man, we'll wrap it up here because we've been talking a lot, and I feel like we could talk for 100 hours and continue to give examples. But thank you for sharing this, man. It was awesome. I can't wait to share this with my teammates and anyone watching. And guys, if you are in Austin, make sure you visit Team Rabadi. Amazing, awesome teammates, awesome coaches, and beautiful facility. Congratulations again, man. It looks great.
Thank you so much, buddy. Like it's my favorite time of the week. Anytime I get to catch up and talk with you and see you and all that good stuff. So my pleasure. And can't wait to have you out to the new remodeled academy. It's just waiting for us.
I'm looking forward to it, brother. All right, my man. And
all right, Coach. We'll see you soon.
Hey, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed that, please be sure to like and subscribe to this channel. Also, don't forget to share this video with somebody else. Thank you.